Hi everyone, it's Ms. Bond here with another installment in our argument and its analysis lecture series. In the last lecture, we talked a little bit about evidence and its need to be relevant, sufficient, as well as accurate. And I mentioned that there were a number of instances where that was not the case, where evidence was not as useful. And so as a result, I talked about logical fallacies, which are weaknesses in argument. But I want to make sure that people have a better understanding of what these fallacy types are. Remember, there are a number of different fallacies that we have not covered and may never cover. And there will also be some more that you will be getting over the course of our time together. But I want to go into a little bit more detail, give you some examples to work from in relation to the logical fallacies that were presented earlier. So, just to make sure that everybody remembers what a fallacy is, I just want to remind you that a fallacy is when there is some faulty logic that is going on. And by faulty logic, what I mean by that is there's actually a breakdown in a person's understanding or delivery of an argument. And so as a result, the understanding of that argument then will be flawed. There seems to be a breakdown or disconnect between the amount of evidence or the type of evidence or the accuracy of the evidence that is used in support of some type of claim. So the evidence does not support the claim, unfortunately. And so that's when you have a fallacy occur. Some fallacies are very blatant, outright, up front, and you can spot them a mile away, and you know that their argument is not something that is sound. However, and most often, fallacies are much more subtle, and it takes much more cunning to understand where the breakdown actually happens, and it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to follow said argument or not. The first type of fallacy that we spoke about was called a red herring. And remember, a red herring is a broad umbrella where there are lots of other fallacies that fall underneath it. But a red herring basically is when you have one pathway that you want your argument to go on. However, what ultimately occurs is a alternate pathway is presented. And so instead of the argument going in the direction that you want to go into, it now instead goes completely to another topic. And if you look in the example examples that are listed here, you have a mother who is yelling at her son about how terribly he's been doing in his classes and how unhappy she is about it. The son, instead of addressing the mom's argument, which is, failing and having an atrocious attitude, the mom instead focuses on his brother Rick and how he took the mother's car without permission. The hope behind that is that the mother will no longer be focused on the failing and atrocious attitude, but instead will put all of her attention now on Rick. Will it work? Only time will tell. Well, I guess we have to stay tuned for that one. In the second example here, you have someone some politician, board member who is making promises to the people, and they have some specific concerns about the community's high school needs in relation to funding. And this funding is supposed to upgrade its facilities, and the candidate who's responding to those issues, instead of talking about, once again, funds and upgrading its facility, he actually says that he understands that they're concerned, and he's asked the school board to review its policies. Now, policies does not sound like funds to me. And so as a result, instead of focusing on funds to upgrade its facility, people are now going to have an idea that policies are going to be addressed. Now, any savvy part of the person from the community would know, okay, I don't want to vote for this candidate, and say no to him. However, some people who aren't necessarily so savvy may then still vote for the person because they make the assumption that their concerns were addressed when they really weren't. Another type of, or a type of red herring is one called an ad hominem. An ad hominem is one that in Latin means against the man. You can also use the word to. So it's either to the man or against the man, where instead of focusing your argument on whatever the topic of choice is, instead of doing that, the focus shifts to a person instead. And so here you have, in this section right here, you have a person who clearly states that his research demonstrates that the use of pesticides in a home increases the risk of cancer. Now, instead of talking about the person's research, once again, this and the research in support of the use of pesticides in the home, what the opponent does is ask the question, have you ever had cancer? And the response is, no, I haven't. And the opponent says, well, then you're in no position to know whether pesticides cause cancer, with the idea that a person who has lived the experience is the best person to know something about it. Now, on some level, you can think, oh, that's kind of true. People who have gone through something usually are the people that you trust the most to testify to something's effectiveness or ineffectiveness, or its truthfulness. However, in this instance, the focus is not on the person. Sorry about that. Things are moving around here. The focus is not on the person. The focus is actually on the research that supports the idea. So instead of focusing on the research that supports this argument, we're being asked to focus on a person, and that's definitely not what we want to do. Another example here that we have, and I bring both of these to your attention because of the fact that sometimes, though, you do have to recognize a person's background in relation to their effectiveness to an argument. So first, let's look at a fallacious version where you have Mayor Burns, who is divorced and estranged from his family. The question that's posed is, can we listen to this man in his pleas for a city nursing home? Now, we have never said that Mayor Burns is a great guy. We didn't say that he was a great family man. He may be overly committed to his job as opposed to his family, and that's not really nice for them, but it may actually be a great thing for the city. And so instead of attacking this issue of the nursing home, they actually end up attacking Mayor Burns, the man. That's fallacious because, unfortunate as his life experience it happens to be in this instance, it doesn't have anything to do with this. However, as we already know, a person's ethos or credibility is incredibly important to establishment of an argument, whether or not you're believable, whether or not you're credible, whether or not the audience will tune into you as well as agree with what you're talking about. And sometimes it is relevant to attack a person's character in the hopes that their character is somehow related to whatever the topic or argument is. And the most recent example of that is in the CIA director Petraeus. This has been in the news quite often in the past few weeks, who had an extramarital affair. Now, typically you think, oh, well, him having an extramarital affair would not be a big deal, and so why bring that up? However, in this instance, an extramarital affair gives and a cover-up to suppress it would show a level of dishonesty and also open up the gate for possible blackmail and We also don't know how much was told between the two individuals when they were engaged in their private affair. How many secrets, if any, were exposed or exchanged. And so as a result of that, it only makes sense that he should resign from his post because we have international as well as military security being at stake. And so in this instance, it's actually relevant and not fallacious. So in this instance, we get a check, and actually a check plus because it's actually a good thing. I'm going to stop here with these two fallacies. Sometimes explaining them in detail can take a little bit longer than normal. So stay tuned for the next fallacy types.